Good evening. I'm Mark Carvin, old managing director of the Midwest Minority Think Tank Foundation. Welcome to another edition of Brother to Brother Talk. And we are excited about being able to dialogue with brothers from around the country and around the nation, but also brothers who come with solutions to all the different issues that are confronting the Black community and confronting our society as a whole. And because of these events that are going on, we need to shift the paradigm from being reactionaries to producing solutions. And we have a great group of men who will be joining me tonight from various segments of the country, various representation of activities. We're talking about change agents who will be here tonight to expound on what we feel are solutions needed. There's so many issues that are confronting us, and life does not allow us to have one issue at each time. So we are confronted or bombarded or facing various conundrums. I'd like to thank everyone who are joining us here on YouTube, and you can subscribe to the channel YouTube Marcos and join us for Black Thinker series and spiritual inspirational messages and different aspects of life. And so we need all those so that we can be balanced, stable, and able to contend with all that life brings our way. Tennessee governor signed a new piece of legislation that makes it illegal to camp on state property, and it's a felony, and you get 6 years in prison. Let me see if I can make that plain. The Tennessee governor signed into law, passed by the state legislature of the state of Tennessee, that makes it illegal to camp on state property, a Class E felony, maximum sentence 6 years. Also included in that law is a mandatory minimum 45-day hold for what is termed as aggravated rioting. Mandatory minimum 45 days. Aggravated rioting. Third, a Class C felony for aggravated assault against a first responder, $15,000 fine, minimum 90-day sentence. That is law. It's designed to curtail peaceful protests, and it will mar a great number of people who are not aware of the new legal consequences, and it would deter others from participating in peaceful protests. It's forcing the strategy to change. The governor of Florida has proposed similar legislation. He calls it felony to obstruct roadways, a felony for obstructing roadways. Misdemeanor harassment of anyone that's a patron at a business of you're protesting and you block someone from going into another establishment, it's an automatic misdemeanor. Third, 6 months for hitting the law enforcement, mandatory minimum of 6 months for throwing an object that strikes a law enforcement officer. And fourth, if traffic is blocked, this one, if traffic is blocked, a driver is not liable for injury or death if fleeing for safety from a mob. So in other words, if you are protesting in the streets and someone says that they feel that they are fleeing from a mob, they can drive through protesters and not be prosecuted for injury or death. Let me make one more statement. Over 20 states since 2018, over 20 states since 2018 have passed different forms of legislation to prohibit protesters. I'll be right back with Jeff Terrell from Covington, Georgia, and you're joining us on Brother to Brother Dialogue. This is Brother to Brother Talk. We will take a break and we'll be right back. I'm Mark Carvin Olds, Managing Director of the Midwest Minority Think Tank. We'll be back with more solution-driven dialogue on Brother to Brother Talk.
PremiumBeef.com.
The Great Lockdown of 2020, a mid-crisis analytical report, represents a historical work. The people provide indicators to their needs and roles in building and establishing the new norm. The voice of the people places at the fingertips of decision makers knowledge of how the area's resources should be deployed to best serve the society and address the needs and concerns of the people going forward. This study serves as a guide to where key research should be directed and sets the course to engage resources during crises by future social theoreticians. Comparison of responses on multiple levels provide an uncanny insight. The capture of a population's response in the midst of a crisis compared to a post-crisis reflection shall prove to be of monumental value into human reactions facing uncertainty during and post a calamity.
Welcome back. I'm Mark Carvin Olds, Managing Director of Midwest Minority Think Tank Foundation. I'm joined now by Jeff Terrell.
Good evening, Reverend Olds.
Good to have you with us. Good to have you with us. And Jeff, there's some serious things happening in our nation right now. It appears that no region or no city, small or large, is exempt from what is going forth in our nation. Give us an insight of what is happening in the metro Atlanta area and in your area.
Well, Mark, a lot of things are happening, pretty much some of the same things that you're seeing going on around the country that's happening just like it is in the metro Atlanta area. We're seeing some of the rioting, we're seeing some looting, we're seeing police brutality here. We've seen quite a bit of everything that you're seeing that's going around the country. Brothers and sisters are being ran over in the street. You're seeing the rioting, you saw the looting. The looting has settled down a little bit, but some of the same identical things that we're seeing that are going on around the nation has been going on in the city of Atlanta and surrounding counties. Specifically when we've had some instances where some Confederate monuments have been removed, and you'd see people that are protesting that kind of stuff. You've seen the news where we've had people killed in the streets as well, just like other cities. And a lot has been going on in the state of Georgia. So it is not immune to what is going on here in Georgia. I think it's surrounding this whole entire country, man, with everything that's going on.
One other thing that I like to ask Jeff. I know that you're a former school board member, an elected official, so you're not a novice to the political scene.
No.
And it's not even necessary to say, well, we've never seen anything like this before, at least not in our lifetime. What do we look for in terms of this next 41 days or 40 plus days to the presidential election first, and uh, just the local election. What is the climate that you are seeing?
I think the climate is just like it is around the nations, Pastor. Um, Folks are concerned about their vote. I think one of the biggest concerns. I was telling you earlier, I had the opportunity to go to the ballot box and help my mom to drop off her absentee ballot today. My mom is 9 years old, and wanted to make sure that she didn't have to stand in line. But I think the climate, you're going to see a lot of unrest over the next 40 plus days. Uh, People are really, really tired of what they see going on in this nation. And I think you're going to see a lot of people that are going to take the opportunity to go to the voters' box. And I could see quite a bit of confusion as we began to go to some of these boxes, specifically here in Georgia. We have new equipment that we're going to be voting on, using for voting. Uh, I've already used it one time, and it really concerns me that it's so much technology there that some of our elderly people may get a little confused in trying to use it. However, good thing here in my city is that we have some people that I know and I have a lot of confidence in because they're church members of mine that are going to be able to assist some of these people here locally. But I am concerned about the technology that's going to be in front of some of our elderly people. I'm also concerned about long lines, voting precincts, and people getting within the precincts and not be on roll. And so everybody that I know, I've been having and sending them to my voter site to check to make sure that they are still registered and that their name appears so that when they do go and vote, that everything is okay for them to go into the poll and to cast their vote. But a lot of that kind of stuff is happening. Lists here in Georgia are being purged. All the same confusion that we're seeing that's going on, that's disenfranchising our people.
Jeff, and Jeff, how are we seeing the young people responding to being asked to vote in the face of the brutality that they are experiencing at the hands of the police at this time? Is that affecting the young people more in terms of not wanting to participate in the democratic process, or do you find it as a boost that we might have a higher young people turnout?
I think we are going to have a higher young people turnout. When I mentioned the Confederate monuments being taken down here in my city, it was phenomenal turnout from our young people to come in and be a part of that. And you would be amazed at and we actually put on at the church itself, we had an opportunity to sit down and make a panel of nothing but young people and the knowledge that they have about the situations that are going on within our country, the knowledge they have about voting, voter registration.
We're going to take a break here and come. This is Brother to Brother Talk. We will take a break and we'll be right back. I'm Mark Carbonose, Managing Director of the Midwest Minority Think Tank. We'll be back with more solution-driven dialogue on Brother to Brother Talk. PremiumBeef.com.
How do I write my life story? I know hurt and pain. I don't like either one, whether physical or emotional. Herein contains my story, Not Without Scars, Part 2. Optimism, Perseverance, Persistence, Resilience. 2 decades of personal struggle. Optimism. I faced a new millennium with hopefulness. Perseverance. My ego, my humble beginnings, my desire to achieve never allow me to turn away from a difficult task. Persistence. Opposition should be anticipated as an effective strategy to victory surfaces. Resilience. Difficulties do not automatically spell termination. Scars reveal my imperfection as reminders of past episodes of pain, sorrow, or triumph. Scars can tell beautiful story endings or relay misery that wishes to remain anonymous. This work is meant to help others who have experienced decades of struggle. When struggles appear to never end, you must get through the night and face the challenge of a new dawn with fresh hope.
Welcome back. I'm Mark Carvin, old Managing Director of Midwest Minority Think Tank. We had a little technical difficulty with Jeff, but right now we have some breaking news.
That we have protesters who have shut down westbound Interstate 64 Jefferson. There are at least a couple of hundred people I can see from the highway expressway cameras there that are holding up their cell phone flashlights and blocking off a substantial portion of the westbound lanes. There's no traffic. They can't get through. So what we see happening here is it's clearly in defiance of a plan by the powers that be to make it a criminal act to obstruct traffic. We have the same thing going on here in Florida with regard to legislation proposed by the governor. He says it's to prevent people from rioting or causing issue, but we've not even had a problem like that in the state of Florida. So we wonder what he's really doing. We think he's simply acting at the behest of President Trump. And unfortunately, we see this wedge that is being driven between people, causing there to be enmity and division, and having people to want to have hostility with one another. It's unfortunate that we don't see the kind of courageous leadership on the part of the president to bring people together so that there is no problem such as that. But that's happening right now, even as we speak, in St. Louis.
Well, that's good. But hey, we're glad to have you on top of things for us. Well, Ben, that's magnificent. And this is the kind of interaction that we need across this land. People are walking around with the abilities now to keep us informed. And the way that the country is moving, it's going to require each of us to become our brother's keeper. It's going to require us to be engaged with one another, community to community. And I appreciate that contact that you have. And this is the other thing that we need to understand. The networking is so crucial that while we are here having dialogue from Ohio, Atlanta, and Florida, that we can get insight of what's going on in Missouri. And the same with, well, in a few minutes, we'll be going back to Jeff and going back to Ron and Charles. We have to stay on top of what's taking place, because the paradigm shift is that we must move away from being reactionary to what is going forth. And we must now set forth the solutions so that the people who will be occupying offices will not be dictating to us their agenda. We're going to go back to some basic civic lesson, whereas representatives are supposed to carry the momentum based on what the people in their quadrant or their constituents say. This is what we want. We don't need a lot of lobbyists and lawyers who are in occupied elected positions mandating and dictating to us what it is that we want. So we have to learn to present from basic civic lesson, you work for the people, and this is what the people want.
That's right. But there's some basic lessons. I see Jeff is back,
Thank you.
and I don't mean to step on his toes, but there's some basic lessons here. One of them is about social justice and what it means. So that when I check my Google, it says that it's the concept of fair and just relations between an individual and society, as measured by the distribution of wealth, opportunities for personal activity, and social privileges. So we understand that we're actually pushing for the same thing that our ancestors have been pushing for literally for hundreds of years. And I understand what you were saying, Mark, with regards to being solution oriented. And I agree. When we recognize that there's no rocket science in the acknowledgement of what the problem is, we know what the problem is. But I got news for you. Dr. W.B. Du Bois knew what the problem was when he wrote The Souls of Black Folk in 1901. He said the problem of the 20th century was the problem of the color line. So here we are, the dawn of the 21st century, and what is the problem? The problem of the color line. So we suggested solutions to the problem back then. It's just that they weren't listening. And guess what? They're still not listening.
I agree.
And so
We are.
it then becomes imperative upon us to move a strategy in place that we place the solution above meaningless conferences, meaningless conversation. We have to get outcomes and results that make change and bring change to our community.
I understand that we need to be concerned with measurement. I understand we need to be concerned with outcomes. I understand we need to be concerned with coming up with some method of 21st century metrics in determining how to get from point A to point B. But I'm telling you that what we're confronted with is the same old problem. It's not as if we didn't come up with answers. The ones who came before us came up with answers and they weren't listened to. So the question is, how do we make them listen? So we come up with a strategy to determine how do we make them listen. So I heard somebody talking, well, marching is out. That's not working. And no, I don't believe that. I think that there are three things that Dr. Du Bois said we needed to do: agitate, educate, organize. I suggest to you
those strategies don't go away. They don't fade.
They do
not fade.
So then when you say marching doesn't work, let me explain to you, just take it to its logical conclusion. I say agitate to let them know we're not satisfied, never let them think for 1 second. Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand, never has, never will. Okay, so then we got to continue to agitate. We know that. Okay, what about educate? We got to educate them and we got to educate us. So that's still in. Okay, we got to organize. We've got to organize ourselves. And I got news for you. We're not going to organize ourselves by sitting around with a bunch of jaw flapping and barbershops and beauty parlors and apathy. And I got news for you. You don't get anything accomplished by sitting at home watching the latest television program. No, you got to march because it encompasses all three of those things: agitate, educate, organize. We got to do something. We cannot sit back. Now, should we employ maybe something like boycott? Yeah, that sounds good. And maybe that would be described as a tactic. Our overall strategy is the same.
I hear you, Ben, and that's part of the solution. The solution is, what is the solution to educate? What is the solution to bring others and get them engaged and involved? I got Ron standing by from the Poconos in Pennsylvania and Eastern New York. Ron, Ben, don't go away, Ben. We want to come back and we're going to get closer to this. Jeff.
Yes, sir.
Strategizing. How do we get in position to educate the opposition?
That's a very good question. I think me and you both have had numerous of conversations on how we can strategize and be able to educate our people. I think a lot of it has to be one-on-one relational, where you got to be able to share the information to the people. You got to read for yourself. You got to understand what the situations are. You got to understand what's actually happening in these nations. I mean, one of the things me and you talked about, I think not long ago, you asked me what news do I read, and I shared with you. I listen at them all because I want to hear every perspective in terms of news. I watch the Fox channel. I watch the CNN channel. I read the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I go to Smart News on my phone, and I try to read as much as I can to stay abreast of what's going on. But we also have to communicate that to the people that aren't reading, aren't understanding what's going on within our nation, and keep them abreast. I'm grateful that I have a pastor that has his finger on the pulse about what's going on nationally as well as what's going on within our community. And he does an excellent job at keeping my church membership educated. And that same information we try to strategize and pass on to others. We invite people to look at. We got a YouTube channel out on the site, but it keeps us all abreast of what this situation. Now he's not going out telling us how to vote, but he's telling us the information so that we can make intelligent decisions. And I think the strategy now is there got to be multiple mediums of how we educate people about what's going on. I like how when Biden was losing, and we reached out to the congressman over in South Carolina, and he was sharing this with. He said his people were literally calling him, asking him who should they vote for. And I think sometimes you got to help people and educate them on why they should be voting or why they should support a specific candidate. And I think that has to get in the mix somehow.
Yeah.
And I think that's a strategy.
Yeah. Well, listen, hold tight, everybody. I'm coming back with Ron Yates.
This is Brother to Brother Talk. We will take a break and we'll be right back. I'm Mark Carbonell, Managing Director of the Midwest Minority Think Tank. We'll be back with more solution-driven dialogue on Brother to Brother Talk.
Beef.com.
Welcome back. And we're joined now by Ron Yates. And Ron, good to have you tonight.
Pleasure to be here.
What is going on that we find that we are having a discussion 100 years later that Dr. Du Bois had, and probably before he wrote, somebody had it before it was penned. What is your approach, Ron? How do we educate the people, and how do we bring the knowledge that we have into this 21st century?
Well, there's a couple of key issues that we seem caught in a repetitive cycle. You know, we keep placing our faith in the government. And I think there's a scripture that says you cannot serve two masters. So we have sort of put our beliefs aside and placed our trust in the U.S. government, that has failed us time and time again. We keep seeking to negotiate with them, but we're not negotiating from a position of strength. We go to them basically asking and pleading. Yet we are the ones that generate, a few $1 trillion of economic activity. And rather than withhold that and build our own economy for our own people, we give it back to the government. The same government that says, well, if you shoot a woman in her bed, if you enter home unlawfully, shoot this woman in her bed, you don't charge the officer with killing her. No, you charge the officer with the bullet that went into the white folks' house. We have to learn that the government is never going to negotiate with us, not in a position we're in. We need to build our internal strength. And for our people, yes, our people definitely need to be re-educated. Because if you look down again in the state of Kentucky, the attorney general is a black man. A black man who was saying that, well, it is clearly legal to kill a black woman, and there is little to no consequence for doing such. He obviously has lost contact with who and what he is. There are so many of our brothers and sisters that look like us, but are Caucasian black folks who think that being black is a curse. And, that is the current religious paradigm, that black people are a result of a curse, the curse that was placed on Ham. And we still walk around with that belief. And there are some of us, like this brother down in Kentucky, that clearly believes that by aligning himself with certain individuals like Mitch McConnell, he can improve his position in life.
And I think that's a general position that has plagued not only our generation but the previous generation of individualism as opposed to elevation of the entire community. I have joining us now, Charles. Ben will be back with us shortly. Charles has been waiting, and he has something that is taking place in Columbus, Ohio. And Charles.
Yes, sir. How you doing there?
Good. What is taking place with the your movement with the city council in Columbus?
Well, city council in Columbus, Ohio, has pretty much given high watch to.
We're having serious problems hearing you, Charles.
Okay. My mic is on.
Okay, go ahead. We'll try to get some volume to you. Mic is on, but he's gone. We'll bring in Ben till we can get him back. And Ben, you heard the comments from Ron. How is it that we get to a position of strength when we can't get to a position of unity? We need your mic back on, Ben.
Clearly, we've tried to get this unity ball rolling. How good and how pleasant it is written, for the brethren to dwell together in unity. And it has always been a major problem. Of course, we also know the strategy, divide and conquer, goes back to the days of Rome. We understand the Willie Lynch syndrome, and we know that there have been black folks selling out for years, all the way back to Uncle Tom. Absolutely. We understand that. But there's also been some philosophical, intellectual debates, like between Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. They were divided. They were two very strong and powerful black men. And had they come together, I feel certain that we would have been farther along than we are right now. But they were divided and fought against each other. I think that there's much to be said about self-help, which Mr. Yates has talked about. We've got to do more for ourselves because we recognize that if you want to do the measurement right, that pushing for them to stand up and fulfill the democracy ideals that they claimed that they believed in, that we'll be waiting around here for a long time. I mean, here they are trying to cut back, push back on the First Amendment of the United States Constitution, when I'm mindful of what happened in 1791 with a man named Crispus Attucks at the Boston Tea Party. If they had the same thing over again, they would arrest him. They would have arrested those guys. What about give me liberty or give me death? Right. The bottom line here, Mark, is that the First Amendment they're trying to trample over right now, even as we speak. And we got to be very careful of the propaganda that they're putting out here.
Absolutely. And not only that, when you talk about the Constitution, we need to go back to some basic civic lessons so that people understand the electoral process, the nomination process. When a law is passed, why is it that so many bureaucrats have to determine the policy to enact the law? And so there's so much that in terms of education that we have to bring forth, and even our thought patterns, we cannot be dictated to that we can only think one way, and that way is that if we're not assimilated, then our contributions are not valued. I see that technically I have Charles back, so we're going to get Charles to update us on Columbus, and then we're going to come right back. Charles,
Yeah, can you hear me now?
we got you now.
Okay. Well, basically, Columbus is just giving eyewash to anything that resembles police reform. But I want to address, some of the, topics that we're talking about. The most effective weapon that we have to dismantle systemic racism is a model that we've had ever since the Montgomery bus boycott.
Yeah.
You have to hit systemic racism with a national economic boycott, but you have to get Black folks to be disciplined to not spend money, because we're the super consumers. We spend money. We like to spend money, and economic boycott will bring this country to its economic knees.
Yes.
And then we don't have to. Then we won't have to ask for anything. We demand it. That's the problem. We keep asking, and we keep believing that our open and historic enemy is going to do anything in our best interest. It is not in their best interest to do anything for us. We have to demand something. Like somebody said, we've been at this for over 100 years, and to continue to talk about it, continue to educate. It's 330 million people in this country. At least 300 million of them, if they're over 12 years of age, know what the problem is. It's systemic racism. I don't think we have to, spend any more time trying to understand what the problem is. We know what the problem is. The solution is to bring this country to its economic knees on Black Friday. If we did that for 1 week, let me tell you something. Just like with the Montgomery bus boycott, when Black folks wouldn't ride the bus, white folks had to come to them and find out, what is it you need? Look, we're always on the menu. We have to be at the table. And I just
absolutely. So that's where strategy becomes effective, and we have to develop the effective strategy. The unification is not necessarily with everyone raising their hands simultaneously. Unification comes when we all understand the objective, and that it is in the best interest of all to participate in a certain strategy. And that becomes our most difficult challenge. How do we get that strategy to unfold and be implemented? Everyone should be clear that when the resources are withdrawn, then people listen. Jeff, are you there with us?
I'm here. I want to respond to Mr. Charles, because I think me and you had this conversation And Charles, I agree with you. When you just start spending your money with people, that seems to get their attention. But me and Mark had this conversation. When you start to not spend money, the bottom line is there has to be some leadership somewhere to be able to implement these strategies that people are willing to follow. And what I've seen out of all the African Americans that are in this nation right now, that are great leaders, have great thoughts, have great minds. I just don't see anybody standing up that people are willing to follow. You know, when the bus boycott, you say, happened, everybody was behind Martin Luther King, and they pretty much did anything he asked them to do because they felt that at the end it would be better for us. But I don't see that leadership in our African American society right now. I mean, not saying that there aren't brothers out there that are brilliant minded, that are smart, but are they leaders? And me and Mark have had this conversation. It has to be a leader that can organize, going back to what Mr. Frazier was saying earlier, that can organize the people, put those people together, and have a clear strategy is what we're talking about here, and follow that strategy no matter what. And I haven't seen that. And you know, I'm open for any of the leaders that you think that's capable of doing that, Mr. Ben. I see you shaking your head and smiling.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I just think that as I look across and throughout the African diaspora, I look at the black body politic, and I just happen to know that there's some brilliant young brothers, thought leaders, and activists in every city in this country. The cream is always going to rise to the top. And, you know, even in the days of the civil rights movement, there was no homogenous entity. There was a king, but there was also a Stokely. There was other people who were there, but they didn't always agree. But still, there was somebody there to accept the baton in the relay race of history. And I know just as there was Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth and Malcolm and Martin, there will be others who will come. It may not happen as fast as we want it to. It may not happen like we expect it to. But I assure you that in the passing of this baton, just as has happened throughout African American history, it will in fact continue, and we will continue to march on until victory is won, in the words of James Weldon Johnson. I know.
I think that what you both are saying is absolutely correct, and that by the fact that we have 5 brothers assembled here tonight, who are able to talk to one another in a civil manner about the other 40 million brothers and sisters who are not on the screen with us. It becomes imperative for me after the Floyd incident. I said to Jeff, the remainder of my days on this planet, I will spend not on any other cause, but for equality and justice as a result of the sickening experience that I had viewing what took place with Mr. Floyd. And so what I'm saying is we can open the doors for that leadership that you're looking for, Jeff, if we keep reaching out one to another, and then we can give a platform so that people can hear and that person can arise. It doesn't matter who he is or who she may be.
Right.
I want to get behind them and make every avenue possible for them to have their rightful place. What I'm going to suggest right now, brothers, I'm going to start with Ron, and Ron, I'm going to ask that you give us a 2-minute plus 30-second wrap up, and you got center stage, Ron.
Okay.
I'd just like to respond to something that Brother Terrell said. You know, one thing Black people have a lot of is religion. And unfortunately, the religion that we have, we're not following it. You know, Jesus said, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. So why are we looking for a leader? Oh, we've always had leadership. The problem is we have gotten away from true leadership, and we have placed our faith, as I said before, in the government. You cannot serve two masters. You're going to love one and hate the other. So at this point, who we love is our government. Right now, we are in love with Joe Biden. Joe Biden, listen, let's be realistic. If you have to choose between the lesser of two evils, which is what we have all the time, then yes, you're going to choose Joe Biden. But Joe Biden is not the answer for Black America. The answer for Black America is Black America. And, you know, when you talk about leaders, you're spending so much time looking for leaders. We are the leaders we're looking for. Our ancestors showed us that we are the leadership that, and we're still fumbling around in darkness when the light is right. You know, Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is at hand. It's that close. But we're still fumbling around in darkness when all we got to do is reach out. And the answers we seek have always been there.
Right. That's powerful. That's powerful.
I agree with you.
Charles, you got 2 minutes, Charles. 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yes, sir. I want to just leave with a quote from Marcus Messiah Garvey. He said back in 1929, when Negro leaders, so-called Negro leaders, went to the government and had him arrested because they thought he was making things bad for Black folks. When he got out of prison, because those same Negroes begged the government to let him out because they put their foot on their neck, he said, any leadership that teaches you to depend on another man for your salvation is leadership that will enslave you. And that's what we've been up under, you know, for the last few years, is leadership that is enslaving us. We have to be our own leaders, as Ron has said. We have to be our own leaders, and we can't rely on anyone else to do for us what we should be doing for ourselves. It is just amazing that we're the only people in this country that is still relying on the government to take care of us and cure our problems. It is not in their interest to do that. We are their open and historic enemy. And we have to understand that and realize that. And we have to strategize, you know, against our enemy, you know, just like they strategize against us, you know, every day. We cannot allow ourselves to be lulled to sleep by people who purport to be leaders. We keep letting this government choose our leaders. We don't choose our leaders. Somebody else choose them for us. We have to stop this type of internalized oppressive behavior and free ourselves. And that's what we have to do as people.
Ben.
Yes, sir. I don't know whether you have my.
We have your audio. You're frozen.
Well, I'll keep it short. Fact of the matter is, I think that we do need to put together, establish, create new tactics, new strategies to deal with some very old problems, and that we need to be open to listening to new voices, young blood in our communities who might have different ideas. I believe that there are different people who have callings, who have gifts, who have skills and talents that we must begin to utilize, and we must hear their voices. They may not say things the way we say things. We may not agree to exactly what the methods that they might use, but I think that we have to begin to employ and implement new tactics and new strategies, and we should at least be open to subjecting those tactics and strategies to the critical thought process, so to see which way we can move from here. But I do have faith that we can make things better for our people.
Oh, wow, that was some powerful. That was a powerful 7.5 minutes. Oh, awesome. And Jeff, you're going to get your 2.5 minutes as well. But let's take a break.
This is Brother to Brother Talk. We will take a break and we'll be right back. I'm Mark Carbon, Managing Director of the Midwest Minority Think Tank. We'll be back with more solution-driven dialogue on Brother to Brother Talk.
Beef.com.
How do I write my life story? I know hurt and pain. I don't like either one, whether physical or emotional. Herein contains my story, Not Without Scars, Part 2. Optimism, perseverance, persistence, resilience. 2 decades of personal struggle. Optimism. I faced the new millennium with hopefulness. Perseverance. My ego, my humble beginnings, my desire to achieve never allow me to turn away from a difficult task. Persistence. Opposition should be anticipated as an effective strategy to victory surfaces. Resilience. Difficulties do not automatically spell termination. Scars reveal my imperfection as reminders of past episodes of pain, sorrow, or triumph. Scars can tell beautiful story endings or relay misery that wishes to remain anonymous. This work is meant to help others who have experienced decades of struggle. When struggles appear to never end, you must get through the night and face the challenge of a new dawn with fresh hope.
I'm Mark Carbon, Managing Director of the Midwest Minority Think Tank. I want you to tune into the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, YouTube Mark O. Each Saturday morning, we present the Black Thinker series, dealing with the issues of how we can resolve the conundrums in our community. And I'm blown away by the dialogue that I'm hearing here tonight, Jeff. I don't know. It's powerful to see the fact that as we reach out across the country, that the leadership will come when the people appear. There's a parable that said, a proverb that said that when the student is ready, the teacher will show up. And so what we have now is a people, a nation, their eyes are open.
Wow.
The COVID-19 has brought people to a place that we should have been in a long time. First of all, it brought people to a place that they had to do some self-examination. It brought people to a place where we have to look at our own resources to retain. I'm going to give you your 2.5 minutes, but I want to say to the other brothers, because I want us to have that after we go off the air talk a few minutes. That has always been so inspiring to me, and I want to make sure that you guys hang around so we can do that when we conclude tonight. But Jeff, I don't want to short you on your 2.5 minutes, and I know that that's going to be powerful as well.
Thank you so much, Pastor. I have really enjoyed dialoguing with brothers. I know me and you had this conversation that we need to bring brothers together, and this was birthed out of a conversation that me and you had. And I look forward to where this goes a year and a half, 2 years from now. Mr. Ben, you said something that really struck a note with me. And when you said we have these gifts and we have these talents, and I am a firm believer that God always has a ram somewhere in the bush, and that there is going to be somebody that will be raised up to lead the people and to be a voice. When I say lead, I mean be a voice for the people. I'm not, everybody can't get in front of folks and accomplish things, but I think that there's a voice out there. There's some leadership that God is raising up. And I witnessed that several months ago. I made mention of this with a panel that we had at my church. I was so impressed with the 6 young students that we had on stage there at that church that night, and some of the topics that were presented to them. I was overwhelmed. When I left that meeting, I knew that we had some strong leadership and some strong young people that are coming behind me that will be a voice for us someday. So I'm a firm believer that God still has all of this in control. Nothing's going to take him by surprise. And I believe that we will soon see some of this come to light, some of these strategies be implemented, and that we as a people will have to gain and benefit from some of the things that God has in store. And God bless each of you who are men that appeared on here tonight on this brother to brother talk. I am looking forward to dialoguing with you further as we try to develop some strategies to be able to push some things forward in the near future.
Well, I guess I'm entitled to my 2.5 minutes.
Get to it.
Once again, I want to encourage each of the participants tonight to hang around when we conclude tonight. But I want to say that I appreciate the fact that we can have 5 brothers come into the same room representing different segments of the population, different regions of the country, and realize that as the mural that's behind me that you can see, all those young faces are waiting for our passing on to them. The scripture said that a man should leave an inheritance to his grandchildren. My political mentor, Arnold Pinckney, out of Cleveland, would say to me that you never retire. He said he enjoyed being in the room because the decisions were made in the room, and he felt that no matter how old he got, he wanted to be there. Another thing that Arnold taught me, I went to him once. I said, Arnold, I'm not trying to rush you off the planet. He was about 15, maybe 20 years older than me. I said, Arnold, I'm not trying to rush you off the planet, but in the chronological order of things, you should transition before me. And so why don't you give me your connections? And he said, Mark, you're smart, you'll get it. And then we began to work on some projects together, and on the timeliness of his transition caught up with before we could complete the process. But he taught me. And so I began to write profusely. I have nearly 40 volumes in print. And that's not being hubris or being arrogant. It's simply that I do not want to transition off this planet with any ideas that could help my people. And I take it to the grave with me. And so it is as we gather together here each week with brother to brother talk, we are making sure that the ideas and the concepts and the vision that we have is not taken to our eternal abode and leave all these wonderful people that are here without an opportunity to build a future. Brother to brother talk. Thank you for being with us this evening.